Okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. Straight to the point. First of all, this is the Mr. Trans show. This is Mr. Trans program. And today we're looking at the news. It's coming across the desk. And we're delivering the news fairly biased. And friends, if you'll notice where we place the commas and where we don't, and where you place the commas and where you don't, that's how it's going to read. And so, as the rule is, not what is the rule, but rather, is it clear? And this will have to do with, is the message understood? Or are you getting your point across the way you want it to be delivered? And that's where the commas go, and that's where they don't go. And if you hear, if you read, if you speak, and you're placing a comma, well, you need to think about how that's going to come across to the reader or the hearer or the audience, if you will. And you have to decide, well, is this, you have to decide where you're going to put the comma or where you're not going to put the comma. Or maybe you don't want to, maybe you don't even want to use commas at all. Maybe you're just spacing the letters out and you'll read it without a comma, but you feel the comma there. And so you do what you think you're supposed to do when you see a comma. And this is only looking at pictures on a page, imprints, designs. These are characters, letters, and marks to denote what you're supposed to do. And that is to say how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to read it. And that is where the author comes in, as the author will decide, choose, as the author is the first reader of whatever book that author is writing or reading. And you might be reading a book right now. Maybe you're reading this one, or you're listening to this, and you're saying to yourself, well, I've got an idea for another book right now, when you're writing your book. And so I'm writing your book, and we're writing your book. Do you see? And you can put a comma there. What I'm talking about. Do you see that? Now, were there any commas in that you understood, that you heard, or that you saw, or that you placed, or didn't place, or removed, where I had a comma? Maybe you didn't see it. Or maybe you don't follow the same rules that I follow when it comes to looking at a comma, or seeing it, or thinking about it. But you have to decide where you want to put your own commas. The comma, C-O-M-M-A, where you want to put your own. And if you want someone to act a certain way, well, first you got to make sure that everybody's following the same rules about what is a comma and what is it for. And then what does it do means, what do I do when I see it? That's what it means. So what does a comma do is the perhaps better question might be to ask, what does a comma tell me to do, and then what will I do when I encounter that? Am I going to do what I was told this comma is telling me to do, or am I going to do what I told the comma it's there for, or not there for? Yeah, it's up to you, but you need to decide. And look, I haven't even gone on to question marks yet. But take a look at these books and see if you have any questions, comma, about any of this stuff. And then if you see it on the page, well, maybe then there's your answer. Or maybe it's just another comma. But you got to decide where you're going to put the comma, or your comma, or whether or not you're even going to use them, or question marks, or brackets, or parentheses, or semicolons, or a dash or two, a hyphen. And then you have your quotation marks, indentations, spacing, typeface, size of the lettering, placing the margins. There's a lot to consider, a lot that goes into anything you're going to say or write on purpose. But if you look at it as if you're building a house, comma, then maybe you will see how you should be making progress on what it is you're building or making, which is another way of saying you get to choose where you put your commas. You choose. But what you do not choose is what the reader, the next reader, because the author is the first reader is the author, what the next reader is going to do. They might be rid of all the commas, and if they are, you have no say in that, because once you've delivered your book, so to speak, your message, you've placed all your commas, you've got everything just the way you wanted it, and they didn't even use it. Well, now what are you going to do? Well, you got to write another book, because that's their book now. And that's what this is. So, if you're going to get any questions, if you're going to have any questions about this, the beginning of it is, the beginning of all these questions is, where are the commas, and what do they do? In other words, what are they telling me to do? And that's going to be up to you either way, whether you're placing the comma or not placing it, or removing it, or changing it, or making it whatever you want. Maybe you don't want to use a comma. Maybe you wanted to use a lightning bolt or something. I don't know. But you decide, you think about it. Whatever it is that you want. It's your book, it's your story, so to speak. Now, as for these books, you can read these books. You can decide for yourself if this is something that you're into, or you can just search these books. But you don't need to buy these books. If you just read the description of the book, you won't even need to buy the book. These books are not designed except to clarify and to open the eyes of the reader to other possibilities besides what they're looking at in this book. So if you're interested in learning more, or you want to see what these books are all about, of course, you're welcome. Search the books. And if you want to copy the book, go ahead and write these first editions while they're available. You will be able to get a free copy of this book at no charge to you, including shipping. And this is according to the author. But yeah, take a look, check it out. I'm not the one to decide where your commas are going, and you're not the one to decide where. I can only present it, and I can tell you what I did, how I did it, why I made the choices I made. And then you decide on your own what you're going to do with that.